Hey everyone, also back with another video. Have you ever played a game of Commander and you are seeing what an opponent does and you say, man, that's really cool, I'm going to go steal that this game? Or perhaps you just want to have so much damage that you can wipe everything off the board and still have enough spare to kill all the other players. Well, do I have a deck for you? This is Obeka, Splitter of Seconds. She's a 2/5 Ogre Warlock with Menace, and whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. You can see where we're going with this already. We have a lot of upkeep triggers, and we're going to duplicate those upkeep triggers after our combat step. And with things that have the get additional benefits from the Monarch, we're going to be able to already have the Monarch because we deal combat damage, and we just cascade further, no pun intended. There are 3 steps that we have to worry about with Obeka. 1 is the payoff, which is going to be the easiest thing. 2 is keeping Obeka alive, and 3 is making sure that she can X every turn. So we're going to go ahead and break down everything. First thing is going to be the payoffs, because I think that's going to be the easiest that we can do, and we can just kind of discuss it, and then we'll go ahead and work with everything else. So first we have Blood Tyrant. This is one of our late game options, but we do have other ways to cheat him out. He's a 7 mana, 5/5 flying trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player loses 1 life and put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Tyrant for each 1 life lost this way. 4 players in the game, 4 +1/+1 counters, and if a player loses the game while he's on board, he gets an additional 5 +1/+1 counters. Blood Gift Demon is one of our engines that allows us to target ourselves, draw additional cards, lose life. Bone Horde Dracosaur is a new card from new Caverns from Ixalan. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exile a land card, you create a 3/1 dinosaur. If it's a non-land card, you create a treasure token. So we can do this multiple times. More engine to just keep us rolling. Keeping Bloodsucker is at the beginning of your upkeep. As you can see, a theme here. Deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain life equal this way. You will be enemy number 1. I am promising you. As soon as your opponents realize what this deck does, everyone is going to be targeting you if they can't remove Obeka. So you gotta keep your life total healthy. And as you can see here, a lot of the balance that came in with these cards was that it was intended for once per turn, and we are completely bypassing that. Dragon Master Outcast, a lot of people have seen this card in a lot of token decks. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 6 or more lands, you create a 5/5 dragon creature token with flying. Indulgent Tormentor, beginning of your upkeep, draw a card unless target opponent sacrifices a creature or pays 3 life. Laughing Jasper Flint, creatures you control that are not that you don't own are mercenaries on top, in addition to their other types. Excuse me. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control. Outlaws are mercenaries, warlocks, rogues, etc., etc. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among those cards and with mana of any type to spend to do that. So just really great synergy here, because we not only are we exiling cards, if we have the additional mana to do so, which is not going to be very hard, we can play those cards, or they just remain in exile. Plargan Nasari is another very similar card, but we do not have to spend mana in order to cast those spells. The caveat is that the one opponent of your choice will choose one of the cards that are exiled, and they will remove that card from the options. And so you are left with 3 cards. You can choose 2 of them in order to play them, or you can just allow them to go into exile. Skyline Despot, same thing. You become the Monarch, and then if you are the Monarch, you create a 5/5 dragon creature token with flying. Twilight Prophet, you reveal the top card of your library, and then each opponent loses X life, you gain X life equal to the mana value. And Wildfire Devils, you at the beginning of your upkeep, You choose a player at random, and that player will exile a instant or sorcery from their graveyard. You can copy that spell, and then play that until you can play that without paying its mana cost. So obviously, if they will have to like get rid of their like counter spells if they don't want you to play anything, but eventually like you may be able to play some of your instants or sorceries that that you maybe had to discard or used up already, such as Profane Tutor or Jessica's Will or Vandal Blast. So Toxic Deluge. Profane Tutor, we're just going to put this. I don't usually put run tutors in my decks. This one is an exception because, one, it's very cheap, and then two, there's benefits of it being in this deck because it has suspend for 2. Inspiring Refrain is draw 2 cards and then put 3 counters on it, suspend counters on it. And same with Rousing Refrain. Allows us to add mana similar to Jessica's Will, and then you suspend it for 3. Moving on, so as we can see here, we have Portal to Phyrexia. Portal to Phyrexia comes in, each opponent sacks 3 creatures, and then each upkeep you bring a creature back from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's Phyrexian in addition to its other types. So there is a board of very scary creatures. You force every opponent to sacrifice 3 of those creatures, and then you swing in with Obeka, and then you start pumping out a bunch of creatures under your control. Same with Virtue of Persistence. So very similar concept. Every it's balanced that you get to do it once per turn. Now you're doing it multiple times. And then we have the Courts and As Foretold. So As Foretold allows you to cheat out any card from your hand once per turn. One important thing to note is that you can cheat out instances during other people's turns. So please keep that in mind while you're playing this. So if you have any sort of counterspell or something, you are more than likely going to be able to cheat that out as well while you are tapped out. And people will see that you're tapped out, and then you still get to play your counterspell. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a time counter onto As Foretold, and then once per turn, you can pay 0 for the mana cost of that spell with mana value X or less, where X is the number of time counters on As Foretold. So again, this is balanced because generally you're only going to get maybe like 3 or 4 time counters on a typical game of Commander, but with Obeka, you can easily get 15. So like anything basically is just now free. Court of Ambition. You become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. Or if you are the Monarch, instead, they lose 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. I have played this numerous times, and it is completely debilitating for the opponents. Because if you can cheat out Obeka turn 3 because of Talisman, you swing in turn 4, more than likely not every opponent is going to have 2 blockers available, and even if they do, they probably don't want to. They're probably like mana dorks or something that they don't want to like immediately sacrifice. You slap down Court of Ambition, and you become the Monarch. You swing in for 2. That means that each opponent is either going to lose 12 life or discard 4 cards, or a combination of the 2. This is very, very debilitating for your opponents, and it hits everyone. Same with Court of Cunning. Court of Cunning can really sneak up on someone, especially if Obeka gets a little bit pumped up, which we are going to talk about in a little bit. You become the Monarch, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, any number of players mill 2 cards. If you're the Monarch, they mill 10 instead. So everyone has 99 cards in their deck. They draw 7. By the time that this comes out, they have about 90 cards in their libraries still. It is not difficult to get 9 upkeeps with Obeka, especially the way that she's built here. Court of Embreth, you create 3/1 red night creature tokens. Fun fact, there are no free 1 night creature tokens available, so you do have to either use infinite tokens or proxy them. I personally am using dinosaurs, 3/1 dinosaurs, because of the Bonehorde Dragosaur. So just if you're looking for 3/1 knights, there are none official available. And then if you are the monarch, Court of Ambreath will deal X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures you control. So this is where you can get some blockers going, and then you do some extra damage on top of that. Court of Ire, you become the monarch. It deals 2 damage per upkeep, unless you are the monarch, and then it deals 7 damage per upkeep. And this is a 100% can become a board clear very quickly. So any problem creature or player, this is player removal too. We're talking at the very minimum, Obeka connects. That's 14 damage available that you can just dole out to either 2 creatures or just hit the player in the face if they're causing some problems for you. Court of Lochthwain. This is very similar to the other cards that allow us to take cards from an opponent's library, and then you can cast them without paying their mana cost. If you are the monarch, you don't have to pay their mana cost for them. And then we have Court of Vantress. Court of Vantress is where things become absolutely bananas in this deck. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you choose one other target enchantment or artifact. Doesn't have to be yours, but generally it will be, you usually will target yours. If you are the monarch, you create a token copy of it. If you're not, then you have Court of Vantress become a copy of it, except it has the ability to change back into whatever you want. So, this is where things go kind of bananas. You can have multiple portals to Phyrexia, forcing people to sacrifice their creatures again and over and over and over again. You can have multiple soul rings, so you have just a huge surplus of mana available. You can have multiple Courts of Ire or Ambition, forcing people to have to discard more cards or have that much additional damage. Like, Court of Vantress is what really just this is the just bananas deck, and then Vantress just takes it up even further to 11. Extravagant Replication is similar. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token copy. That's another non-land permanent you control. So same thing, you just make additional copies of whatever you want. But it is limited to what you control. Whereas, so I had a game where it was a Goad deck. They had Hot Pursuit, I believe. It's an enchantment that goads another creature that an opponent controls. So the whole point of the deck was to goad your opponent's creatures, and then you get benefits for them attacking your opponents, essentially. So I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of fun, and I don't want to be attacked because, once you're up against a goat deck, you start limiting the options of who's going to get attacked. I was clearly, a huge problem as it was already. So that was not looking good for me until I had Court of Vantress out, and then I could just make duplicate copies of Hot Pursuit on my side of the board. And I had 5 copies of Hot Pursuit, so everything on the table was goated except for my things. So fun little interaction there. Mechanized Production. This is a alternate win con. In case something happens and someone has a billion life or has some combo available that allows them to not lose the game. Mechanized Production. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. So you can make token copies of, you can enchant your soul ring, you can enchant these other rings that we'll get to very soon. We even have the replicating ring, where it taps for 1 mana of any color, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a nut counter on replicating ring. Then if you have 8 or more, you remove all of them, create 8 colorless snow artifacts tokens named replicated ring. It is different that have tap 1 mana of any color. So you already will have 8 replicated rings, and then when mechanized production kicks in, if you enchant one of those, then you automatically win the game at your upkeep. Palace Siege, you will always choose dragons for this enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. Phyrexian Arena, everyone knows this, you lose a life, draw a card. Just more fuel for the engine. And then Struggle for Project Purity, you will always choose Brotherhood for this one. When it enters the battlefield, you choose Brotherhood. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent draws a card, and then you draw a card for each card drawn this way. So if you have 3 opponents, they each draw 1 card, you draw 3. And then Paradox Haze is in here in case you are having trouble keeping Obeka on the board. At least you have double your upkeeps. So it's not as insane as when you do have Obeka and she's swinging in and connecting to your opponents, but at least you will still be in the game if she does get removed. So that is our strategy. This is our payoffs. How do we keep her on the board, and then how are we also ensuring that she connects? So obviously we have Lightning Greaves for the Shroud. We also have Silver Shroud Costume, which has Flash, gives it detaches to target creature you control, and then it does gain Shroud until end of turn. We also have Winged Boots for both the flying and the ward 4. And then we also have these 3 rings. And these rings are keeping with the car theme. This is basically nitrous oxide. You think that having 3 upkeeps per turn or 4 upkeeps because of Paradox Haze is insane. How about 7 upkeeps per turn? So Ring of Evos Isle, Ring of Valkis, and Ring of Xanthrid. They are 2 mana, equip for 1, and they each have an ability. So Evos Isle gives equipped creature hexproof until end of turn. Ring of Valkis gives equipped creature haste, and Ring of Xanthrid regenerates equipped creature. Here's the thing. There's an additional bar of text towards the middle. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature if it's blue, or if it's red, or if it's black, which are coincidentally the colors of Obeka. So not only are we going to be swinging in, but we're going to be constantly making Obeka bigger. And her text is, whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional combat steps. Or I'm sorry, that many upkeep steps. So, you swing in with Obeka, you immediately, and she connects with just a single ring on there, you immediately give her 2 +1/+1 counters. So now she's a 4/7. You untap with her and she's still available, and the ring is still on her, she's now a 5/8. So you are now swinging in with someone with menace that already has evasion on there. And if you have a target that doesn't have 2 blockers, or you have any of the other things that we have on here to allow her to get in, you are now getting 5 upkeeps per, additional upkeeps on your turn. This is where everything just clicks for this deck, and no one sees it coming. And then you could do other funny shenanigans. You can mechanized reproduction, these rings, and then equip them. Or, same with Court of Vantress, you just equip them. It really just kind of gets out of control. Wing boots we have here for the flying and the ward 4. We have aqueous form for cannot be blocked. We have security bypass for cannot be blocked. Also connives, which is another way to pump up Obeka. We have Great Train Heist. This allows you to have an additional upkeep and give her a +1/+0 and first strike, if you so choose. And then we have Silent Arbiter. Silent Arbiter is no more than one creature can attack each combat, and more than one creature can block each combat. So with the interaction of Menace, this does mean that Obeka cannot be blocked, because only one creature can block her, and therefore she cannot be blocked. And this also keeps you from being attacked with like a bunch of small tokens that might be going in for the crackback. Sean, Father of Synths, allows you to create duplicate copies of Obeka. This may be on the chopping block just because I haven't really found much of a use for it, but it is kind of silly to have additional commanders out there that will give you more upkeep triggers. But I've never been to a game that has actually like gotten to this point. And then Thas of the Sea, you can pay 2 to make her unblockable as well. And then finally we have some lands that also do the very similar things. Minas Morgul, Dark Fortress, comes into battlefield tapped. You can pay 4 and tap it, put a shadow counter on target creature. For as long as that creature has a shadow counter on it, it's a wraith in addition to its other types. So basically, she will gain shadow. There are not a lot of creatures in Commander that have shadow, and so therefore she will generally be unblockable, or at least not everyone is going to have shadow. Or at least a shadow creature that could block. And especially with Menace, having multiple ones. Shizo, Death Storehouse, gains Fear, so similar concept. If as long as you're not, every player is playing black or artifacts, she can usually slip in. We did originally have Rogue's Passage and Access Tunnel, but I ended up taking those out because generally there's a lot of mana that has to be done, and it's every turn in order to get those to work. So Access Tunnel is 3 mana plus tapping that land. Rogue's Passage is 4 plus tapping that land, so essentially it's 4 and 5 mana equivalent, unless you have your mana rocks available. And Access Tunnel has the restriction that it has to be power 3 or less, and we are kind of looking to grow Obeka, so it was very niche. And one thing I've just kind of realized, playtesting this deck, is that that's a lot of mana that you're just kind of sinking in just to where you're trying to also like build your board while swinging in. So yeah, and then we do have some counter spells in here just in case something happens. We have blue is very good at just kind of like very cheap removal. It's pretty close to like second to white with Reality Shift, Rapid Hybridization. We have Chaos Warp in here, and then we have 2 counter spells just in case. Could maybe put a third one in here. And then we just have a Psych Rift, just in case, like, we get blown out, we can at least reset the board. Same with Toxic Deluge. You get blown out, or, there's just a ton of blockers available, and you just want to kind of like reset everything. One nice thing about Obeka is that she does have a pretty powerful butt at 5. So you can Toxic Deluge for 4. That will get rid of a lot of stuff, and she'll still survive. Just remember that she will not be able to attack if you do the Toxic Deluge before because sure, her power will be much less. So yeah, that is this deck. It is far more powerful than I actually thought it was going to be. You definitely are the problem in the 4-stack. There is no getting around it. One thing I will say is that if you are going to attempt to do this deck, it is very nice to cheat out Obeka on turn 3 with a rock, but you got to make sure that you also have some sort of payoff on turn 4. So if not, easily someone will try to remove your commander, and then you're just stuck with nothing. Or you attack, you swing in for 2 damage commander, and then you have no payoff, and it was just like a complete waste. So yeah, you want to make sure that you get the payoffs out before you start swinging in. Yeah, this deck is a ton of fun. There's a lot of triggers. You do need to be on top of it. Every game is different, and it's so interesting to see how it goes. It's not, nothing's always the same. Everything is just kind of like bizarre. Like people can tell that I'm having a blast playing this deck. They may hate me for it, but they know that I'm having a blast. So doing a playtest, we're going to go ahead and just show off. I'm going to go ahead and remove this camera real quick. So this looks like a decent hand. So what we'll go ahead and do, we have a lot of tap plans, how this deck plays. So we do have a Lightning Greaves, which is nice. We have a lot of lands in here, but I think we'll be okay. Hopefully we'll get a payoff in here. If not, we'll go ahead and we'll cut and try something else. I want to get this out, but I don't think I'm going to be able to just yet. But we'll go ahead and play this Haunted Ridge. We'll play it tapped. Go to next turn. We'll play... I guess I could have done this. So we'll do that. We'll tap it. Play the Dragon Magister Outcast. Go to next turn. We'll play a Swamp. We'll play the Talisman of Indulgence. We do need a blue still. Hey, we got a Scalding Tarn. Okay. So Scalding Tarn, we'll pay, get the 1 life. We could get Obeka out, but there's no point, and so we're just going to go get a Xander's Lounge. Just for the mana fixing, because we really have no reason to get her out. This is the only one that actually has a payoff for her swinging in, and we have to wait till 6 lands anyway. But we will go ahead and play our Lightning Greaves. So next turn, we do get a Shipwreck Marsh. So we will go ahead and play a Silent Arbiter. Okay, now we have a payoff. So we'll play the Laughing Jasper Flint. Next turn, we'll play the Morphic Pool. We'll go ahead and bring out Obeka. We'll attach the Lightning Greaves onto Obeka, and then we'll swing in. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands. We should get a dragon, presumably that this is out. And then we also have Laughing Jasper Flint in here. And so we will... because Obeka is a Warlock, we're going to get true triggers off of Laughing Jasper Flint, plus 2 dragons. So we will be able to look at top 2 cards of up to 2 opponents, or we can look at the top 2 cards, or 4 cards of 1 opponent, and then play those spells with any mana. that we have available. Oh, and then, yep, we have extravagant replication. So we'll make copies of Dragon Master Outcast that will now make even more dragons, so on and so forth. This is, you can see where this deck, this is turn 7. Even though we didn't have Obeka out until turn 5, this is already just an insane board. My rule of thumb is on turn 7, if you haven't exploded yet, then, you know, there's something wrong with the deck. We just took a random hand, and as you can see, like, we already have our commander out. She can attack unimpeded. We have other ways of attacking unimpeded if need be, and we're getting multiple payoffs for her attacking. So yes, we can. We are susceptible to a board wipe, but we also have Lightning Greaves in here, so she has protection with Shroud. I mean, there's not a whole lot else that we really do need. So if you did stay till the end, I do appreciate it. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so any likes, comments, subscriptions really do help the channel, help us grow, try to get up to our 1,000 goal. And then also, just a reminder, I will post a link to this on Moxfield, so you can go take a look at it yourself. If you have any questions or any thoughts about this deck in particular, please leave a comment on there. And then I do have other decks that I don't normally talk about, mostly because I'm still kind of working on them, and I theory craft a lot of decks, but don't necessarily talk about all, because I'm still kind of like workshopping them, where I just don't don't feel as good about them as I normally would. But I do keep these up to date. So if you may see some cards in here that I don't necessarily talk about, and it's just because I've kind of like adjusted them over time. But I would appreciate any sort of comments that you may have. So yeah. So this is Obeka. It's an amazing card. This deck is quickly becoming one of my favorites in Commander. So yeah, hope you enjoy it. We'll see you next time. Thanks.